This is the Dreyer Drive podcast. This is a podcast all about siblings and the people, places, and pop culture that raised us. And this week, in the name of All Hallows Eve, we are talking about the Salem Witch Trials. But of course, before we get there, Jacqueline and I have to spend an unfathomable amount of time talking about nonsense. And this week's nonsense includes panic attacks, and of course the life and death situations that bring them upon us. Things like going through a car wash and or riding a regular commuter train to work. And of course, in the process, we will disrespect death. And then, as always, we will wrap this episode up with an unhinged text message from a family member. And this week's unhinged text message brings up a conversation about a hyper-specialized piece of equipment just ready for somebody to mention a specific name so that it can fire up and jump into action. Let's get into this.
The dorkiest thing that I can ever admit, other than that I was on a competitive reading team, is that I have a label maker that I love my label maker. Justin got for me for Christmas, and I'm like, wow, I've never been more touched because I love this label maker. And so I bought these really nice chargers and then labeled them all like, these are Mom's. If you touch them, you will die. Like it literally.
So you say you bought some really nice chargers?
Really nice chargers, like the nicest one.
Yeah, can we create a division between the nice chargers and the not nice chargers, just so I can know where I stand?
The not nice chargers are the ones that you buy at a gas station because there's nothing else you have. But these were like nice ones, and labeled them all with my label maker, and they're still gone constantly. And then they'll be in my kids' rooms, and I'm like, why did you take my charger? And they're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, why? Why is this the curse of having children? It's just deny. And I'm like, guys, we all know. Come on.
It says right here. It says right here, Mom.
It says I will actually murder you on the all the way around on the label. Like, you will actually die if you take this charger.
The label's covering the prongs or whatever it's called. You can no longer plug it in because you've been so focused on the labeling of it.
I don't slam cupboard doors. I just aggressively label things in the house, and the kids are like, you might want to avoid Mom today. She's on a rampage.
Noah reads this book before bed. I don't know if it's a good book for before bedtime. So in Japanese, they use the word pinch a lot to describe like a situation, like you're in a pinch, right? Like something that we wouldn't, but they use it all the time. Like they'll use like, I'm in a big pinch. Like they'll actually like, that's like dai pinch. And so there's this book that we have.
Wait, is the Japanese word for pinch also pinch?
Pinch.
Okay. It was just said like that.
Yeah, just pinch. And dai pinch is like big pinch. So anyways, there's this book called the Encyclopedia of Big Pinches, and each page, and it's got a graph for each situation where it's like, this one makes you feel embarrassed, this one makes you feel frustrated, this one makes you feel nervous, whatever. And it's got like, what are the graphs called? It's like it's like a pentagon, and then is that the word? Like a 5-sided like object. Yeah. And then there's like an overlay of like, this one skews mostly embarrassment, but also a little bit frustration. And then it assigns a score for all of the big pinches.
This sounds right up my level. Like I want this.
Yeah, it starts off and it's like, your cake looks like it's about to fall over. Your birthday cake. So the first pinch situation is you're about to eat your birthday cake and it's about to fall over. What's the score? Like, what's the level of this one? You're like, that one's about a 13. It's mostly embarrassment. And then it breaks down why it's assigned that score. The whole reason I'm telling this is because it goes up in value as you go through the Encyclopedia of Big Pinches. And it gets to this one near the end where it's like, Mom is really frustrated. And it's like, dai pinch level, like 85. It's really high. And I'm pretty sure the picture, it's like the mom's back is turned, and I'm pretty sure she's washing dishes. I want to actually go and get the book. Just furiously scrubbing dishes, and you just know by the way the water is splashing that Mom is in a really bad mood. But the fact that they would include that, there's nothing about dads in this at all, which by the way,
just moms.
Hey,
dads never get frustrated.
Hey, we parent too, but yeah.
We're in bad moods also.
I am constantly in a bad mood. It's either I'm hot or I'm cold. All right. I think that's a Katy Perry song, but that's what you get from me. And anyways, I thought it was funny that in the Encyclopedia of Big Pinches, there is a page dedicated to moms being frustrated, and that it's really high. Like it's way above. Some of them are hilarious. Like one of them is like the elastic of your pants breaks, like the waistband elastic
that
breaks.
Would be extremely upsetting.
And it all leads up to the final pinch, and it says like, you fell in the mud, and it shows this picture of this illustration of a kid, but there's no score. And it goes through this whole like explanation of like, yeah, you fell in the mud, but and you flip the page and it's like, play in the mud. And it's 0 score because you just turned it into like a play. So that's what we read before bed. We're like, what should we be anxious about tomorrow? Okay, we forgot our lunchbox. Our cake fell over. The strawberry on our cake fell off. There's a mosquito that's only focusing on me. These are literally things from the encyclopedia of big
a mosquito that's only targeting me specifically.
Yeah, like, it's literally one of them is like, there's a fly in the bed in the bedroom at night. Oh no, sorry, it's a fly that's only flying around you, and it's a mosquito in your bedroom at night. Sorry, I mixed those two up. It's not even a mosquito. It's just a fly.
Thank you for clearing that up, because I had questions. I was like, wait a minute, what about
There's
that
one
fly?
where it's like it gets dark when you're on your way home. Like that's one of the big pinches.
That's time. That's the passage of time.
and I'll end with this one. There's one where it's like you forgot your bento box, your lunch box at home, and so at school you like open up your bag. There's no lunch for you, and then you flip the pages, and it's like, yeah, but your mom decides that you're gonna go out for sushi for dinner, and then the next big pinch is that you ate sushi with wasabi in it, and the kid's just so frustrated. Like, I forgot my lunch, but we're going for sushi, but it has wasabi in it.
Okay, when you said, I heard big pinch and I heard playing in the mud, and I don't know if I've ever told you this story. Wild story.
How does that...
What?
Speaking of big pinches in mud, let me tell you.
Remember, you and Seiko came to Utah once, so we went to Moab, right? You went to Moab with us. Yes, we did. So one time, I'd gone to Moab with my family. I think I only had Addie at the time. She was little, so she would have been like 2.5. As you drive into Moab, which if you're unfamiliar, Moab is where like the Delicate Arch, if you're unfamiliar, you went there. Anybody's unfamiliar with it. It's where the Delicate Arch is. You go hiking. There's like red rock everywhere. It's like, that's what it's famous for or whatever.
And just so the arch that you're talking, like they're giant stone arches. So even like the Delicate Arch, I'm not sure if that really, just so you know, that's where the Delicate Arch is. People are like,
well, it's on our license plates. So I feel like it's a pretty big deal.
Great. So anyone who's been to Utah or seen a Utah license plate, we're really sticking with the theme of making this as niche as possible. And
okay, so we were so as you go into Moab, there's this giant sand hill. I don't know if you remember seeing it. We probably did go by it while you were here, but there's this giant sand hill, and it's just like straight up all sand, and you stop there to like play around in it with kids.
I totally remember. People are parked, like pulled off on the side of the road,
and
you
pull off
like
on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And so we had gone there, and I think we were leaving Moab after a trip, and Addie wanted to stop at the sand hill, so we were like, okay, let's go. And Justin didn't want to go up the sand hill, and so he was just waiting at the bottom in the parking lot area, and Addie and I were climbing up. And when we got to the top, let's be honest, it was probably midway. It's really high up. It's probably midway. When we got to the midway, Addie and I buried my legs in the sand, and we dug a little hole, covered them up. And when they were done, I called down to Justin because I wanted him to take a picture of me buried in the sand. And I was like, Justin, look at me. Look. He's like, I don't have any legs. And he's like shaking his head at me. And I'm like, no, get the camera. Take a picture with me with no legs. And he's just shaking his head furiously at me. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And he never took the picture. We come down. And as I get down, I realized that a van for disabled people had pulled up. And a woman...
Can I edit out the laughter? I'm laughing at you. Just for the record, I'm laughing at my sister and the situation.
A woman who didn't have any legs was in a wheelchair, and I had been screaming down to Justin.
Isn't this hilarious?
Like, take a picture because it's a novelty to not have legs. Take a picture of me, Justin. And the whole time he's like, shut up. What is wrong with you? So that was my big pinch while playing in the mud.
大ピンチレベル99 99.
So upsetting. And that's one of those things that for the rest of my life, I'll wake up at 2 a.m. and just be like, I can't believe I did that.
It's amazing how those things just burrow and never come out until 2 a.m. and then they go back in. It's not like you remember and you release it. You're like, I asked a girl to dance during Alanis Morissette.
Truly upsetting.
Yeah. Back to sleep.
And back to sleep. And then 3 years later, it'll come back to me, and I'll never, I haven't thought about that story truly for a few years, I would say. And then you mentioned playing in the mud, big pinch, and I'm like, I made fun of that woman.
And we laugh it off. We're like, ha ha ha. But the sweat that actually, that's so wet. That actually comes out. Well, you relive that. You're like, it was so funny, and I'm so totally over it now.
No. Okay, speaking of sweat.
Please.
Speaking of sweat, if you were going to ask me how my week was going, the answer is not great. And I don't know if this is an audio medium, but I have sensors all over me.
Can we go to can we rewind to where you're about to say, I don't know if you can what? Just so people who are, if you're not watching the video, Jacqueline has some like random patch of something at the very top of like under her collarbone, which is covered by a sweater. So for her to be like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I can what? Read your mind or see through your clothing? I'm not sure what the
I do feel like if we eat Pop-Tarts the same way, then you can also read my mind.
I also have. I pull my shirt down and I'm also wearing one.
Twins. No. So I am covered. I have one up on my chest and then I have like 6 more down my torso. And the reason is Jonathan, who is 3 years younger than me, the best thing about Jonathan is if there's something wrong with you, he will never say, don't worry, there's nothing wrong with you. He will always match your energy of what you think is wrong with you. It's like, do you remember in Bridesmaids when she gets on the airplane and she's like, I'm not a good fly. You've never seen Bridesmaids?
No.
Oh my gosh. So there's a scene
I
in
watch
Bridesmaids.
cinema. I watch cinema. Okay, I do not watch movies. I watch cinema.
I know for a fact that you watched Sushi Glory Hole today, and I don't feel like you watch that much cinema.
Well, when it comes to music, that's a whole different story. Trash, nothing but trash and gangster rap.
Yes. So there's a scene in Bridesmaid when they get on a plane and Kristen Wiig, the main character, is sitting next to a stranger and she's like, I'm not a good flyer. And instead of the stranger being like, you'll be fine, she was like, me neither. And I had a dream last night and you were in it. And they just start amping each other up about how they're going to get in a plane crash while they're playing. And that's how Jonathan and I work when we are talking about specifically health things, the things that are wrong with us. If I text Jonathan, I'm like, this is going on. He's never like, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. He's like, you need to go to a doctor now. You are dying. And so on Monday, I've been having this thing where all of a sudden my heart rate will just skyrocket out of nowhere. I'll be like at the grocery store buying milk. It's not even like linked to anything. I can't. And that's why I was like, yeah, it's so weird because I can't link it to anything. I'm not in like a stressful situation. And I wear a heart rate tracker all the time. And I sent Jonathan like the screenshot of what my heart rate tracker is. And you can just see like a sharp, like out of nowhere up to 130, 140. And I sent him the tracker and he was like, are you sure you don't want to go to the doctor? Because I feel like this is kind of a big deal. And so I was like, oh, I guess I should go to the doctor. And so I literally called the doctor the next day and was like, can you get me in today? So I go into the doctor and the first thing he wants to do is an EKG. Is that what EKG is, the heart rate one? So the first thing he's like, let's do an EKG. And so he brings in the nurses and they start to apply all of the different sensors to me and they can't get it to work. Like nothing's working. And because our whole family is like this, we have this awful need to be the best at everything, including like completely benign things like being a EKG patient. Like I'm like, oh, like when they leave this room, I want them to be like, that lady was so good at EKGs. And I'm like, I know, thank you. So I'm like, I put this pressure on myself to hold perfectly still while they're like restarting the machine. They're redoing all the things. And I am like not moving at all. And not only that, like I'm just sweating. I'm sweating so much. And I'm on one of those like paper, like when you're at the doctor's office and you have to lay down on paper.
It's basically parchment paper. It's
parchment paper. And I can feel the sweat rolling down my back as they're doing this. It took them like probably 30 minutes to get it to work. So I'm just motionless, completely motionless. And sweat is rolling down my back the entire time. At one point, one of the nurses is like, you can relax, because I was just rigid, not moving. They finally get it working. Sweating so much. And when they were done, they were like, okay, like you can get dressed. The doctor will be back after he looks at your results. And I get up and like the paper, it looked like someone had been to the Chippy and wrapped French fries in this paper and then put it back on the doctor's office chair or whatever, because it was so, and then I was so embarrassed. So I got up and I'm like, yeah, I'll change really quick. So they all left. And I was like in the doctor's office, like trying to fan off. Like fanning it off because I was so embarrassed when the doctor came back, and I was like, and for some reason I'm like, oh, he's gonna come in here and he's gonna be like, what is this? Is this sweat on this paper? Like, I'm like, he's gonna know, and he's gonna know it was me. Like, and then he's like, why are you panicking right now? Why are you? And it's like, because I sweat on this table and I humiliated. So anyway, they couldn't figure out anything by the EKG, and he was like, I want you to do like a 48-hour monitoring session. So they stuck all this stuff to me, and for the next 48 hours I have to write down anytime I feel show a heart rate increase and say like what I was doing at the time. And so that's my life now. And I'm like, wow, turning a 40 is so much fun. Love it.
I can't wait for you to turn in a 46-page journal written on both pages. You're like, here's been my last 48 hours.
Like, is this the best one you've ever seen? It's
like,
fine.
What's this one at 2:30 a.m.? You're like, oh, that's when I woke up in the middle of the night remembering how I made fun of a woman for not having legs. And he's like, that's not. I actually don't think this is a physical problem. This has nothing to do with this. I think we've got another doctor for you.
I hate things touching me. I hate being touched. Having this on me. Last night I slept 2 hours because I was like, these things are touching me. I don't even let my kids touch me. I don't let anybody touch me. Justin, never.
All right. I guess I don't have to ask how your week is going. You just let off.
So that's how my week is going.
That's wild, though.
We're struggling.
Did the doctor give any indication of like, here's what we think it is? Or are they just like, I love also that he stuck all these things to you and then asked you to write down when you feel your heart rate increasing. You're like, bro, is this not why these things are connected to me? Is this not what the machine is doing?
Not only that, I have all these things on me and then I have to wear a belt with the battery pack and the actual computer monitor on it. That
so you're a Ghostbuster.
Records everything.
You're walking around like a Ghostbuster.
It looks like a first generation iPod. I have stuff to do, so I'm out and about, like walking around. It looks like I'm just listening to a really old iPod on a belt, like a normal person.
You should just tape earphones to it, like the cord coming out, and those like old Sony like foam, like the little piece of aluminum metal that rounds around your, and then. Anyway, just nod your head.
He said it's either a condition called costochondritis, which Jonathan had, which that's why I was like, Jonathan, is this what you had? And he was like, yeah, and it's horrible. It's the worst thing that you've ever experienced. And it's just like when like the tissue around your ribs gets inflamed and it puts pressure on your heart. And that's why, anyway. Or he said it could just be like a new version of anxiety that I haven't had yet. So I'm pretty amped about that actually being a diagnosis. Like, ooh, new flavor, new anxiety just dropped.
Yeah, and it really is the drop. That's the anxiety drop where you're just like walking through and you're like, I'm just gonna pick these flowers. What's going on? Oh my gosh.
It's like, I'm fine. Oh, I can never go into a movie theater again.
And it's just so random. And then what it does is somehow it happens once and then immediately conditions you for that situation to never happen again without the anxiety to be connected with it. So I had this situation when I was like 21, the first time I was living in Japan. I'm in Tokyo. I go to a TGIF's and first mistake. I go to TGIF.
In Tokyo?
In Tokyo, yeah. It's like, let's go to, it was right beside Outback Grill in this place called Shibuya in Tokyo. So I go to TGIF's. I eat a Philly cheesesteak. Second mistake. So these mistakes are going to be. Yeah. So I eat the Philly cheesesteak and a lot of French fries. So I'm full. I'm very full and it's time to go home. And I'm sure you've all seen like what some might believe are sensationalized videos of the Tokyo transit system where trains are so packed, where I've been on trains literally where people have fainted and you don't know because they can't fall over. They're like, oh. It's like one of those sleeping goats. But it doesn't fall over. It's like, and you're like, oh, this person's just catching a snooze. And then you get to the transfer station, everyone gets out, and that person just face plants.
Just falls to the ground.
They've been dead. They've been dead for 48 minutes, but they couldn't die because they were being held up. They aren't. I'm not making fun of death. I'm kind of.
Okay, every time you make fun of something, you're like, but I'm definitely not making fun of that thing.
But I'm definitely. It's just like, by the way, don't cancel me.
If I say that, then I wasn't making fun of it.
I was clearly making fun of it.
That's the rule.
And making fun of death, really. Like, really? That's what I'm nervous
No
about.
Disrespect to death. Sorry for all you death heads out there.
Death heads, right after the episode 11, the soul heads, which I believe you made up for the fan base of Collective Soul. But anyways, so I get on this train. It is packed, absolutely packed. And I'm dead center. And I've not had a problem with trains ever in my life. So let's look at up until this moment, I have lived in Tokyo in complete peace and harmony. Even on the packed trains, I'm like, this is so cool. I'm in Tokyo and this is so much fun. And this is like month 11 of living there. And then the train starts and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, Philly cheesesteak, is that you? I'm like, are you about to, is this an encore? Is the world about to see you for the second time tonight? And then instead of being like, you know what, I'll just get off at the next station and just like get some air. I'm like, I need to get off this train right now before I projectile vomit on everybody in here. And like, I'll just be puking on people. Like that's what's going to happen. I'll just be puking.
And they're never going to forget. And then I'm going to be on the news.
But they won't even know who it is though, because the train is that packed. Like but I didn't think that clearly at the time. And the wave of actual anxiety that I had never felt in my life up until that point, like I'm like literally, and now I'm like having a heart attack on this train. No disrespect to heart attacks. I'm gonna puke and then I'm gonna pass out. Like this is the sequence that and then so I wait, I'm trying to just hold it out. I'm trying to hold out until I get to my train station and I can't do it. Like one train station before mine, I get off and I just have to take a seat while I'm like, am I dying right now? Like, is this it? Like me and a Philly cheesesteak at a Tokyo train station. No one knows.
He died doing what he loved.
He died doing
riding trains after a big dinner.
And feeling super anxious about it. So this happened one time, literally one time. I get home and I'm like, but what if it happens tomorrow? And then I start having an anxiety attack about the thought of it happening the next day, which is like bananas crazy, right? Bananas crazy.
Bananas.
And then I couldn't get on a train. Like the next day I'm like going to work. I'm like, all right, I'll just go to, oh my gosh, I can't ride. Totally forgot I can't ride trains anymore because of Philly cheesesteaks and puke. Like, and it's Tokyo, like the next train station is 60 seconds away, right? But my logical brain, I'm the most rational, logical person 99% of the time. That 1% of the time, I am the most illogical, irrational person.
Nightmare human.
Nightmare of a human being that just tornadoes his way through everything. Like I'm just so, and this is it. So literally from that moment forward, it would just randomly pop up on a train. Like I'd be good for like 12 train rides. Number 13, you think I could just get on that and be like, and your next destination? I'm like, what? Death. It's death. It's clearly death. I am dying. I need to get off.
I'm going to barf.
Public humiliation, puke, death, pass out, train, heat, other people, strangers, all of those things mixed.
Well, I told you about how I had the panic attack in the car wash and I can't go through car washes now, didn't I?
Just ruins it.
I haven't told my friends. Yeah, I haven't told the Crispies. The Crispies don't know about it.
But they can't wait to hear the story.
I mean, that was a very condensed version of it, but I had just, that's the moral of the story.
Jacqueline, a masterclass in storytelling. I had a panic attack in a car wash. Have I ever told you about it? You just did. You actually
now
just
I can't go to car washes ever again. So we had gotten a brand new car. And here, I don't know, are they popular all over the place? Are the car washes where you lock your tires in the track and it pulls you through like a long tunnel?
I feel like that's an old school. You know what that is? That's a thing for places where there's lots of free space.
Oh, yeah. And that's
here you just park and the thing just moves back and forth over your car.
Yeah. So they just like gained popularity here all of a sudden, and everybody has like you just buy a subscription to one and you have just unlimited per month or whatever. And so we have one on all of our cars, and I've always been fine. Like whatever. I don't love it, but like I'll go through a car wash. Don't want to brag, but so I had gotten a new car, and it has a car wash mode, and I didn't realize that I had to put it in car wash mode to be able to put it through a car wash. And so, they wave me through and they're like directing me where to put my tires and everything. And then you need to put it in neutral for it to pull you through the rest of the car wash. And so they're always like doing like hand gestures that you don't really know what it is because it's like they're just trying to move you through as fast. And
you have to have training as like an air traffic controller
yes,
to understand. Like, I don't know what you're doing with those lit up batons.
So, and they're always like these little light shows inside. They're always dark, and all the car washes put like lights and stuff in them so that it's like, I don't know, fun to go through. Like one of them is duck themed and it sprays like duck shapes all over your car. Like it's wild. It's wild. And everybody's like really loyal to their car wash. It's like, I go to Quick Quack, and it's like, I go to Wiggy Wash, and like they're very specific.
Excuse you?
Where you
what
go.
Did you just call me?
This happened at a Wiggy Wash, just so you know.
If I had to choose one without knowing anything about them.
So I locked my wheels in, and then the guy points to the neutral sign to put my car in neutral, and I realize I have no idea how to put my new car in neutral. It's not the same as my old car, and so I'm just like being pulled along, and I don't know what to do. There's cars behind me, and it's like you have to like pull the lever down softly to put it in neutral, because if you pull it down all the way, it'll go into reverse. I'm just...
Which you don't want.
Which you don't want in a car wash with cars behind you. And I, instead of just like calmly trying or even signaling to the person like, hey, I need a second, I am pulled into the pulled into the car wash, and then I wildly just start putting it into park and reverse over and over again, because it's just like pull, push, pull, push, push, pull. And I'm like losing my mind. Again, losing my mind when you start going like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Because I know I'm going to get rear-ended by a car. And of course, we're in a dark tunnel. All you can see are my lights, my reverse lights, and my parking lights going on and off and on and off as I furiously try to just like figure out something. And so what they did was they shut the entire car wash down because they saw my lights. So everything stops and the lights go up. All the lights come on. And as I see the girl coming to walk towards me to be like, what's wrong? And I finally get it in neutral as she's walking towards me. So I like coolly roll down my window. I'm like, is there a problem, ma'am? And she was like, you need to have your car in neutral. I was like, my car is in neutral. What are you talking about? Like I, again, shamed her for it instead, even though it was clearly my problem. My body went into full just adrenaline, like I am a caveman outrunning a leopard. And it was like, this is your fight or flight moment. And I went full flight and got out of the drive-thru, and I'm just like shaking because of this harrowing experience. And now I can't go drive through car washes anymore. It's just like a no-go zone. Like it's not going to happen. Justin's like, I paid $30 a month for this. I'm like, take it off. I will never wash my car again. That's on you.
And what a great metaphor for anxiety in general. It's just like pulling you along. It's pulling you along. Going, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. You can't go back. You can't go forward. This tunnel is getting darker and darker. Now there's lights, but now it's dark again. Someone's reaching out for help. You decline.
You act weird about it. What's wrong with you? And then I'm also like, they have a video somewhere, and I'm sure they're like, here, we're going to use this for training purposes. Like, see what this woman is doing? Do not let people do this.
Oh, I want to see it. I want to stumble on the TikTok account that has published that.
I know it's out there somewhere. It's probably on the same account as the time that you fell off a treadmill.
And I tried to get the video. I actually did. I actually tried to get the video. So, yeah, I was on a treadmill once, running, just doing my normal thing, running.
He's really anxious of treadmills now.
Yeah, I have not been on a treadmill since, I swear to you. I swear.
So there's a pattern here.
Yeah.
I feel like there might be a pattern.
Trains, treadmills, car washes. But yeah, I'm doing my thing on a treadmill. I was watching the TV up on the thing, and I'm going at a pretty good clip. Like, I'm fairly athletic, for those of you who don't know. So I'm doing my thing, running. This woman literally gets on the treadmill right beside me. There's so many open. And I'm like, oh, she wants to be beside this athletic young man like myself. So I'm running. I look over at her, look up at the screen. And then I don't know how, but I drifted off to the side of the treadmill, and I stepped on like the side where the treadmill's not moving. So it stops, right? Which then just throws everything off because there's no of this momentum. My left foot still goes down. So my right foot hits the track. My left foot still goes like it's running. It didn't know that the right was going to just call it quits. So it touches. I fall back. I flip off. And I go immediate into porter mode, which isn't like, just accept the fact that you've failed now. Just accept it, roll off. I grab the two handles, and I'm like going to try to power my way up against the force of the treadmill, back up to my feet and continue running. This is the level of thinking that's going on right now. So I grab the two sides. I'm trying to pull myself up. I'm just shredding my knees, my shins. It's just burning. It's just melting all of my skin off. And I'm trying to pull myself up. I cannot. There's just no way, because again, I'm running at a good clip. This is not a walking treadmill. It is going fast. So I'm like, and I just let go. And I hit the treadmill, and it just spits me out like a snowblower. I just go flying back. I hit the row of treadmills behind me. And the woman beside me, she like emergency stops hers. She turns around to me and she's like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I got back on the treadmill and continued running like I was just halfway through. Like, that's just the first rep. So I get up
to the bit. Commit to the bit.
Started again. I go faster. I'm like, I'm going faster. The blood is just running down my legs. I'm just squirting blood all over the treadmill. And I continue for like 3 minutes. I'm like, crack my knuckles. I am in so much pain, but I cannot give in. So I'm like,
No.
screw this. I'm finishing this workout. So I go to the squat rack and I load up like as much weight at the time that I could possibly squat. And I'm like squatting and there's just blood running down my knees. My socks are soaked with blood. I do like a set of squats and I'm like, that's all I came here to do. And I left. I go in the change room. I go home completely defeated.
Start crying.
Yes, I'm crying in the shower. And it's just burning my knees. I'm like, the treadmill, the skin. And the next day I came back and I was like, hey, so yesterday I fell off the treadmill. And they're like, we're so sorry about that. But when you sign up, you sign a waiver to say, I'm like, no. Is there any possibility of me getting a video of it? He's dying laughing. He's like, no, I can't give you a video because there's all these other people in the gym. Can you just like crop them out and focus on me? Like I want this. And long story long, they didn't give me the video and now it just lives.
You're like, it's the content. I just need the content.
Yeah. And so now that's on the list of things that I'll wake up to at 2 a.m. out of breath. Treadmill. I check my knees.
Where is that lady?
Like
What always gets me too is that I then always picture the people that were around me in my most embarrassing moments. And I'm like, I know they go home and tell their families about this.
Oh, yeah.
I know that girl went home and was like, I was at the gym today. Or the person working at the car wash was like, I was at work today and this woman lost her mind in the middle of a car wash. Like that part of it, I'm like, I'm so acutely aware of like main character energy to the max. I'm like, they're going to be talking about me. They're going to be talking about me for days.
And you assume they're going to tell the
feel
story
like-
the way that we would tell the story. They're all around a giant wood kitchen table with a name engraved into it from one of the kids, and then they're just telling the story the way that we would be like, and then this guy fell on the treadmill, tried to power his way up and got spit out the other end like a snowblower.
And we're all dying.
I want to see the video. One
time, mom and dad, I was probably about 8 or 9, and we watched what I would term like wildly inappropriate movies for our age group when we were kids.
Adult films, double
adult
XL.
films. No, like I remember watching like The Birds when I was like 6 or 7. We watched It. Mom rented Carrie for my 11th birthday party. So mom and dad had our cousins, Kelly and Tom, over. They're married. They're not cousins who are married. They're married because...
All right, things are about to get really Utah here.
So Kelly is our cousin who married Tom, but she
who's
married
not
Tom
our
when we were
cousin
very-
until he was married to Kelly, who is our cousin.
They married when we were young, so he was just kind of like always part of our family. So like Kelly and Tom are just a package deal in my head. And they must have been dating at the time, but mom and dad had them over to watch Last of the Mohicans. And I was only 8 or 9 at the time, and they were like, Jacqueline, you can't watch this movie, you need to go to bed. And I was furious. Like I remember being so like, I was like, I watched Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Do you think I can't handle Last of the Mohicans? And so I was so mad, and our TV room was in the basement, and it was when it was in the fireplace room.
The fake,
and so they were down there.
The non-working fireplace.
With dead birds in it. So
and also sometimes alive birds. Sometimes they would fly in. Anyway.
If we were lucky. And so they were down there watching it. And
then we would have food for a week. Sorry.
So they were down there. I was in my room, which was directly above them. I just sat upstairs, just so upset. And so my retaliation was I sat up in my room and just slowly pushed everything off of every flat surface in my room onto the floor.
Are you
like
a cat?
Like a cat. No, like a cat. 100% like a cat. I was like, this will show them, because I didn't want them to enjoy. I was mad that they were going to enjoy the movie without me. So I was like, I'm just going to make a ruckus. So I sat up there and I was like pushing off piggy banks, my clock radio, my goldfish. No, not the goldfish, but like just books, everything. Like, and I was just pushing them off one at a time, and I would wait like 5 seconds and then just do the next one. So up downstairs, you could just hear like every 5 seconds there was a massive crash. And finally, like 20 minutes after that, mom came up and she was like, just come down and watch the movie then. And I was like,
mission accomplished.
Come downstairs with my blanket. Like I'm the queen of the castle.
All right. I have a question this week.
Yay. Okay.
I'm trying to figure out the sequence of telling how this question came about in my mind. Okay. 1.
Which cousin would you marry? No.
Okay, so the episode that went out this week was the Prince William, Prince Harry episode. So the Heir and the Spare. And you have been known to talk about royalty and to be hyper fixated on royal families and their culture, their history, their beefs. So that's part of it. But when I was in grade 10, I did a co-op placement at Southwood Park. So I went back to our old elementary school and I did a co-op placement as a gym teacher. And I remember there was this one day where I was in the library and just going through, like, they had these like old books. They had these books, like these spiral bound books of our artwork when we were kids in Southwood Park. So I'm like 16 and I'm looking at pictures that we drew when we were like 8 years old, right? And so I was flipping through one and there was a story that I had written that they laminated and kept in the library for time and all eternity that talked about how we went to Newfoundland for a family vacation. And I claimed that we used jetpacks to climb a mountain in jetpacks. Like, just let that sit in. And so anyways, the next book that I looked at was a book of coats of arms, I guess, the plural version. So like if you were gonna have...
I was going to ask this question.
Shut up. So
does it have to be, is it words or pictures?
So it's a coat of arms, right? So it's a shield. And for those of you who don't know what a coat of arms is.
That's what I said, a shield. That's what I was calling it.
Yeah, it's like a family shield, a family crest.
Okay, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. Crest.
I'm going to, just so you know, in post, in the edit, I'm going to make it so that I said that 2 seconds before you. So it looks like you're just repeating.
It was crest. And I'm like, yeah, it's crest.
So yeah, so it's like a family crest. It's like a shield and it's divided into like 4 sections. And there are like 4 images that represent your family, right? So I want you to imagine that you are bearing the family crest on a flag or on a shield. What is on your version of the Porter coat of arms?
I would say, like, if there was like a motto underneath it, I would like the motto to be just something like, you're making it so much worse. Because I feel
Latin,
like that
but
is...
in Latin.
In Latin. Someone look up, you're making it so much worse in Latin, because I would love to put that on a crest.
I will do it right now.
I would do it. That would be super funny. And I would love to also hear you try to pronounce it. So on one of the squares would definitely actually, like, funny you should mention Newfoundland, because I do think that would be part of the crest. Our dad is from, if you're not familiar with the geography of Canada, he's from a island on the east coast, very east coast of Canada, called Newfoundland. It's very small. It's very small. They have very interesting accents, and like growing up being, they would call it like a Newfie. And I feel like I'm trying to think of like what an equivalent in the United States would be. Like, I guess someone from like Alabama, like someone who has a really thick accent and like people think they act a little bit differently than the rest of the country is the best I can get to it. I love Newfies, and I love people make jokes about them in Canada, almost like a blonde joke. They're jokes where the Newfie doesn't get something or whatever. But I like having a dad that was from Newfoundland, or like identifying to people like, oh, I'm part Newfie. Like, that was a big deal to me. So that, like, the flag of Newfoundland definitely goes on it. I would say probably Taylor the dog. It would have to be, or just maybe like a mural of all the animals that we had, which, like, we had hamsters, guinea pigs, everything, bunnies, fish, dogs, cats. So Newfie's pets. Newfie's pets. Then I think if I was going to do a third one, it would definitely be the conversion van.
Oh!
We, for a while, and I'm sure we'll get into this at another episode, for a while, our daily driver car for our family was like a conversion van. We call it a Shaggin' Wagon a lot. It's a camper van. It had like blinds and drapes. It had a table. It had a TV and a VCR.
It had plush carpet.
Captain's chairs, and just like getting dropped off to school in a camper is very funny. And just at the time, I was never more humiliated in my life. Now I'm like, that's such a special memories.
Just blend in. This giant white and purple van pulls up with a boomerang antenna sticking out of the front, so you get a TV signal.
And us being like, just being a very visible, loud, large family, just pouring out of a camper van everywhere we went. I feel like that was very much like on brand for our family. So I'm going to go Armada, which is you're making it so much worse in Latin.
Hoc tanto pies facis.
I'm going to do that. People would think it was so cool, and then they'd be like, what does it mean? Like, oh, it just means you're making it so much worse.
Tattoo across my collarbone. Hoc tanto
Daniel's
pies facis.
getting one as we speak. So there's my 4: the motto, pets, the car, and newfies.
I like the motto. I wish I had thought of the motto. I really like that. So okay, it's funny that there'll be an overlap as there typically is. So on my coat of arms, in the top left, there would be, those like the 2 masks that represent like drama. There's like the laughing mask and then like the sadness mask, I guess. So I would definitely have the laughter mask because I think
just for people who care about this stuff, it's comedy and tragedy.
So sometimes you learn something. All right. Some days you learn something.
I need to get that out.
So comedy and tragedy.
Hoc
tanto pies facis. So comedy and tragedy, except I would definitely have the comedy mask, right? Big smile, laugh, because laughter is a big part of what we do and how we process anything. We're like, someone died? Who? We're related?
Idiot.
Yeah. So there would definitely be that one. But instead of the tragedy, like sadness mask, it would be a mask that didn't have a mouth with just flames for eyes, representing anger.
Rage.
Yeah, just rage. Blind rage. Because I feel like that's the constant energy. It's either like, this is so good. Everything is so fun and this is so funny. What are you doing, you idiot? Like that's...
This is inconveniencing me in the most minor of ways, and I will not stand for it.
Yes, we just skip tragedy. We get right to absolute blind rage, and everything's funny. So it's either this is the funniest thing, or I cannot process anything because I'm so angry. That's kind of the way that things flip flop. The next one would have a dog. So I imagined like a tailor, maybe a wiener dog stuck to her back, or she's attacking another dog. Go back to our pets episode if you want to know what I'm talking about there. The next one, I had things I was thinking about on this one, and I decided to go with a VCR.
Okay.
So for a couple of reasons. One, there was a point in the Porter family history where we used to go and rent a VCR because we didn't have a VCR. We would like literally go and rent a VCR, and it would come in this like, now they've got those like pizza bags that keep your pizza warm. Like they brag about it.
Like
Domino's
a soft case.
Yeah, soft case. So you would get it and you would like bring that home and you'd have like a rented couple of videos on top, and you would have 48 hours with a VCR, and you would just watch those 2 movies as many times as possible in 48 hours. And to this day, and I don't think this is like a really unique thing, but I love movies. I love when Friday night rolls around. We have movie night every Friday and Saturday night in our house. And it's like we sit down, we put on a movie, and sometimes we'll watch the same movie on a Friday night and a Saturday night. And I remember like renting movies and just like watching it Friday night, waking up early on Saturday morning, watching it again, eating lunch, watching it again, and just like that being part of like family hanging out and like enjoying time together. And then also creating this kind of like, this movie night thing that we do, and we still like really enjoy sitting down and watching movies. And I really do enjoy movies. Like I love sitting down and watching movies.
Not to be like kids today, but because of the like sheer amount of content available, you don't have like the comfort watches that we had as kids where it's like, we had a finite amount of VHS tapes available to us. So you just watched the same ones over and over again, whether they were taped from ABC Family or whether you actually had the VHS, the puffy Disney ones are the best ones.
Yeah.
But what, the idea of just like watching the same content over and over again and just like really getting into it like that, I just honestly don't think that really exists anymore.
To round out my coat of arms, the last thing that I would have on mine. So I've got the comedy and the rage. Okay. So I've got the comedy and the rage. I've got the dog. I've got the VCR. And in the final slot, there would be a single red brick. So Dreyer Drive, the house was a red, it wasn't even real red brick, I don't think. I think it was just like the facade. Yeah, which I think it also kind of plays in. But yeah, so
Drama.
the red brick would be there just to, round it out and represent where the actual physical location that we grew up in and all these other things took place. So yeah, that's my coat of arms.
Oh, I like it. With that being said, do you want to spend our last 30 minutes
as we are an hour into this?
Well, you're in luck because we got another wild topic today. So I do need to say that I've been trying to make an effort to try to find more sister relationships for a number of reasons. Like, first of all, I just don't think in history, there's as many like sisters recorded. And also because I don't have sisters, it's just a relationship that I feel like is pretty foreign to me. Like, sister dynamics are kind of strange and they scare me a little bit sometimes, where sisters are so good at just like hating and being so mean to each other and then being best friends 5 minutes later. And it could not be me. I would be gutted for life. So I was trying to find, and because it's close to Halloween, I don't know, maybe we want to edit this and send it out around Halloween, the week of Halloween, because this is a spooky topic about the Salem Witch Trials.
Wow, I like tackling the light ones.
Yeah, I think this might feel like a little bit lighter because there is a lot of like awful things and death, but I mean,
Hold on. That's how you qualify. This one should be light. It's a lot of murdering, blood, child sacrifices. I think we're going to really find the lightness in this one.
But like, we are like 400 years removed from this at this point.
Statute of limitations, I think, definitely.
So I feel like we should, like the hurt of the Salem Witch Trials should be far gone. So there were actually...
there are witches listening to this who are like, says you.
Wow. No hate to... Don't want to offend the witches out there. The witch heads. Don't want to offend the witch heads out there.
The witch heads. You could just call them witches. I think at that point, you're just a witch.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you about the Town Sisters, which were three sisters who lived in Salem during the witch trials. In the Salem Witch Trials, just a quick background, these young girls in Salem in the 1690s, 1692, these young girls started acting very strange. They would have outbursts. They would be barking like a dog. They would be uncontrollably screaming at each other. They would contort their bodies in strange shapes. And it specifically happened, there were 3 girls who were 9, 11, and 12 that this was happening to.
So they were breakdancing. You just explained breakdancing in a nutshell.
They were ray gun. It was ray gun from Australia. So these 3 girls are starting to do this strange behavior. And one of their dads is actually like a pastor or minister. Salem is a highly puritanical society. And because he's the pastor, I can't remember if it's a pastor or a minister, but he's kind of the most important person in town. This is happening to one of his daughters. And when he questions them about what's going on and pushes them on it a little bit, like, why are you acting this way? And they don't really have an answer. They start to say, like, it's witches. Witches are doing this to us. Like, this is what's causing it.
The daughters say that.
The daughters say that. It's a daughter and a niece, actually, that he has. And they're saying they're witches. And there's a lot of things going on at Salem at this time. Witchcraft is something that they are very scared of. They had just survived a war. They had still coming over from England. Things are fresh for them still. And so the idea that they were like witchcraft, it sounded plausible to them at the time because a lot of things couldn't be explained in 16 at the time.
Sure.
At the time, not now.
They can't Google it. They can't ask Siri or
they can't,
ChatGPT.
like in 1692, a lot of things happen that can't be explained. Smallpox happens. They're like, must have been witches. Like, your cow dies. Must have been witches. Like, it's an easy way to blame weird things that they can't explain on something that makes sense to them. They were like, we all agree it was witches, right? Like, it was definitely witches. So these girls say it was witchcraft that is causing them to act this way. And so he kind of pushes, well, then who? And they first name 3 people. At first, they only name like the slave that works at their house or like a homeless woman that lives around Salem. So they're kind of accusing people in the community that I think they can easily pin it on and that aren't really important to the community. But when the slave girl, her name was Tituba, the slave girl is arrested for witchcraft and she becomes an informant. To avoid being executed for witchcraft. And so she's like, yes, I was a witch. Like, Tituba literally is like, yep, I have dabbled in witchcraft. You got me. Like, she's fine with it. But she's like, but I'll give you other names of people who are also witches. And she names 3 sisters that live in Salem. Their names are Rebecca, Mary, and Sarah. And Rebecca, Mary, and Sarah are all elderly. Like, Rebecca's 60, Mary's all in her 50s, and Sarah is 50 years old. So it's not like they're like out there, but they're older. Out there. They're older women and they're well-respected women is what I wanted to say. They're well-respected women in the community. So it's pretty shocking that they are accused of witchcraft. They are 3 of the people that are tried then in the Salem Witch Trials, which actually ends up taking 25 men, women, and children who are accused of witchcraft who are executed in the span of a year. Most of the accusations begin in the start of the year in like February, March. Rebecca, the oldest sister, is the first one to be tried. So while they're trying these women, they allow something to be admitted into evidence called spectral evidence. And spectral evidence is anytime someone is like, I had a dream they were a witch, I had a feeling they were a witch. Spectral evidence is evidence that has no founding whatsoever and is just like anything someone said, and it was specifically supernatural. If someone had experienced something supernatural, they could say admit it into the trial as spectral evidence. And
so basically a Trump speech. If we needed a modern day example, this is the way that Donald Trump gives us. He's just introducing spectral evidence. He just weaves it in.
Yeah, new facts every day, and it's just a surprise when you log into Reddit and you're like, what did he say today? And that's how the trials go.
Spectral evidence. I love that spectral evidence has now been rebranded as fake news. I love that that's the modern day.
Okay, so 39 people sign a petition for Rebecca saying like she's definitely not a witch. She's a 60-year-old woman minding her own business, but they still take her to trial. During the trial, the girls would come to the trial and have outbursts and blame it on the witches. Like they were like, I can't control myself. It's her. She's doing it to me right now.
Rebecca, stop it.
Rebecca, like truly, that's what they would do. And it was used as evidence against them. Like, look, it's happening right now. And Rebecca had been like a very like upstanding citizen, but one of her neighbors testifies against her and says that they had a disagreement where some of the neighbor's pigs came on Rebecca's property. And she was like, and Rebecca cursed my husband, and 3 weeks later he was dead. Like, I'm not for nothing, but I'm just saying.
I'm not saying she's a witch, but I'm also, hey,
I'm just saying
coincidence?
My husband is
I think
dead.
not.
She is found guilty, and she's actually originally found not guilty, but there's such an outcry from the girls and their parents that the judge is
judging her? Because this is an actual
judge, yeah.
Judge, and this is in the year 1690. So I'm guessing a very well educated, experienced, rational, logical judge.
Yeah, he was definitely also a minister and also really hated witchcraft. So originally she's found not guilty by the jury, and the judge recalls the jury right after and is like, again, I need you to consider the fact that she's probably a witch. And the jury's like, you got us. You got us.
Did you miss the part where they told us that she was a witch? They're like, yeah, like, but I don't. The girls were just, she's a witch.
We clearly had spectral evidence, so she is a witch. And what's one of the strangest things about this whole thing is Rebecca also believes in witchcraft. And at part of the trial, she's like, I don't know. The devil could be appearing as me, Rebecca. Like, I don't know. Like, obvious. So, you know, she acknowledges that these girls, that witchcraft is real, that the girls have seen witches, and that the witches might have appeared to the girls as Rebecca. So I don't know if that's the best defense. Like
it might have been me. I don't know. It might have been me.
Murdered.
I might be the devil. Rebecca, you are not helping your cause. I might be the devil himself.
Rebecca, you need to stop.
Her lawyer's going.
Well, actually, because they were witches, they weren't allowed to have lawyers. So by nature of actually going to trial, they were already accused and guilty of being witches because they're like, sorry, you're a witch. You can't have a lawyer. It's like, what if I wasn't a witch? Like, well, then you could have a lawyer, but you're a witch. And so then they'd introduce them to the court, like this witch who doesn't have
Rebecca.
A lawyer.
Yeah.
like
who's
okay,
unfit
well, I guess
for legal defense.
So Rebecca is the first of the three sisters to be found guilty, and she is executed in the late summer of that year after being in jail. Now, her sister Mary also was accused, and she was accused of trying to break girls' necks while they were sleeping. And the girls also did this like fun little trick where they would mimic what Mary was doing in the courtroom and then say that she was making them also do that. So she would have her hand like tucked under her chin, and they'd be like, look, I'm doing it too, and my hand's stuck. And it wasn't until like she could put the hand down, they're like, okay, it's okay now. And then she would do another thing. They'd be like, look, she's pulling her ear. This is making me also pull my ear. I don't know why a Puritan woman.
Are we at an auction? Pulling the ear to signal that they want to purchase the painting.
And like this time, like the girls are putting on like a wonderful little show. And the judge is even like, are you guys sure this is what's actually happening? And they swear up and down like, yes, this is absolutely happening. I mean, Mary is released from jail after 2 months, but the same girl says that Mary is still appearing to her as a witch at night. And so they haul her back in. Again, same thing that happened to her sister. They're like, you're fine, you're fine. And the girls are like, no, really, it's actually happening. So she gets pulled back in. The girl says that she can't rest until Mary is actually in chains. And she acts like she finally is, like Mary gets put in chains and the girl's like, oh, like finally she's gone from me.
I feel lighter.
She's tried and sentenced in September. She's hanged in September with 7 others. Right before she died, Mary actually wrote a letter to the judge, obviously proclaiming her innocence, but also trying to get him to reconsider that there were all these other people still in jail for witchcraft and being like, this is crazy. None of these people are witches. And that was like her last act before she died, was to write this letter trying to absolve the other women that were in. I'm like, Mary's a nice lady. For her part, the girl who accused her still won't rest and says after she dies, Mary is still visiting her as a ghost and haunting her. And it's like, hey, lady, relax.
How old
you did
is
it.
the person who's accusing Mary and Rebecca of these things? So the one, for example, the one that's like really pushing for Mary to be in chains and to be executed. How old is she?
She's 12 years old.
So no one thought,
No.
no one thought for a second, like, should we just
maybe we should just give this girl some more attention than she's been getting, because I feel like that would solve a lot of the problems that are happening in Salem in 1690s.
Also, what a tremendous amount of power for a 12-year-old to have, to be like, she's a witch and he's a witch and she's a witch and he's a witch and that little boy right there is also a witch, and like kill them all.
Imagine, no, one of the other girls that was an accuser was 9 years old. Like, imagine you're acting out and your parents are like, why are you acting out? And it's like, I don't want to take the blame. Like, kids' prefrontal cortexes don't understand how to take the blame for something or accept responsibility. And they're like, it was definitely a witch. I wasn't just barking because I wanted attention. So finally,
hold on, really quickly, I'll tell a story. It happened like maybe 2 weeks ago. So we watched the movie If. So the Ryan Reynolds movie called If. It's imaginary friends.
Did you cry?
So I did, actually. At the most random scene.
I also cried.
Which scene or scenes?
I saw it at the beginning of the summer. I'm not quite sure. It was definitely one of the ones when, I think it's probably her with her dad in the hospital, that I was crying at. And then anytime I get really sappy, anytime there's a show about kids growing up and like putting aside things of their childhood. And so that I knew going into it, I'm like, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah. So I cried at the scene where she's walking through the hallway of the hospital and all of the imaginary friends are there. I was like,
I just got goosebumps.
You're all here. You all came here. And then, of course, at the end, I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but at the end, I was also like, as a dad watching that. But anyways, so from that point, Noah has always had this like kind of imaginary friend named Pita. Not Peter, it's Pita. Like this, like, anyways. There was this day like 2 weeks ago where Noah has a lot of Porter traits about her. She's very stubborn. She likes to argue. She doesn't let up. 99% of the time, it's so fine. Like, I just get it. I understand it. But there was one time, there's something happened with Naya. She's crying. She needs a bottle. Seiko's frustrated. And, like everything just compounding. And then Noah wanted attention and I can't remember, she threw a bowl or something. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, it wasn't me, it was PETA. I'm like, where is he? Where's PETA? You show me PETA right now. Where is he? And I was like yelling about wanting to see. Yeah, that's my comedy and rage. I'm literally not yelling, but I'm very close. I'm like, where is he? Where's PETA? Show him to me so I can talk to PETA. And I'm like, imagine someone just flew into my house right now to surprise visit me, and they arrive at that scene and they haven't come around the corner. I can't see them yet. And they're like, what is going on? I'm like, where is PETA? Show me, PETA.
Show yourself, PETA.
And I just imagine all of these people taking their 9-year-old's word for it, being like, no, it's a witch. And they're like, okay. And like, I aspire to be that type of parent. I guess we have to
execute her now? Like, wow, what a leap.
Yeah, so there's part of this like aspirational thing that I think is built into the story. We're like, I would love to believe my children when they're like, it was a witch. And I'm like, we should kill them. We need to kill them, baby.
I don't think there's any other option. Anything for you.
Anyway, continue. I'm so sorry.
Andrew had two imaginary friends.
Continue. All right, I'll continue with something that's not the story.
I'm continuing on the offshoot. Just Andrew had two imaginary friends that were pirates when he was a kid, and their names were Thinger and Thunger. And so it was always like, I'm going outside to play. And I'm like, with who? It's like, Thinger and Thunger. Like, okay, well, they're not real. And they were pirates who lived on a pirate ship. Anyway,
they sound like 90s WWF wrestlers. And welcome to the ring, Thinger and Thunger.
And they're identical twins. Okay, so last to be accused, Sarah is the youngest of the sisters. She's 50 years old at the time that she is accused. She is accused of being a witch because as she's leaving church, she let the door slam too aggressively behind her, and the entire congregation was like, "Witch, witch, she's a witch." And it's like, okay, well, I just like didn't know the door was gonna shut that hard. They said like, oh, it's obviously a sign of protest against us executing her sisters, and we're like, I guess that means she's a witch too. If you hate your siblings being executed for witchcraft, you're probably a witch.
Enough to let a door slam in the house of God? You're finished.
How dare you? She's put in jail. She's accused in April, and she is left in jail until January of the next year because during her trial, they finally rule out spectral evidence. They're like, we are no longer allowed to accept spectral evidence in these cases. And because of that, nobody has anything to accuse her with. She's just a lady who accidentally slammed a door. And she is actually released from jail. She's the only sister that survives, and she spends the rest of her life trying to clear the names of her sisters. Like, that's all she wants, is that people recognize that they were not witches and that the church rescinds their position because they were also excommunicated at the time.
I thought you were going to tell me that she actually goes out and becomes a witch, like that movie Double Jeopardy. When you've already been tried for a crime once, you can't commit it a second time. She becomes a witch
witches,
and starts killing children. Yeah. She just fully embraces witchcraft.
In about like 5 to 7 years, one of their main accusers, who is then older, I think she's in her early
Hold on,
20s.
wait. So 7 years passed, and then she was older than she was 7 years prior.
That's how the passage
aged.
of time works.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're aware.
I want to confirm the details of this extremely detailed story.
It's one of the girls that accused them writes a letter confessing that she made the entire thing up, has her minister or pastor, I can't even remember what the word is, read it in front of everybody so that she can take communion and be like forgiven for what she had done. So she's like, anyway, I made it all up. Okay, give me communion now.
Let's move
We're
on.
done here. I'm like, you guys feel like you guys are still talking about this a lot. She expresses remorse for it, and then she actually even speaks to Rebecca's family members to like verify that the confession was like enough for them, and Rebecca's family's like, okay, I guess. One of the wildest things about this is that
it hasn't been
it's gonna get crazy.
Wilder than spectral evidence.
Okay, yes. This is the part that blew my mind the most, is these are the real sisters that are the inspiration for Hocus Pocus.
What?
They're the Sanderson sisters.
Oh my God.
The Sanderson sisters are based on the town sisters.
That's not just a completely made up movie for us when it was like the 90s or whatever.
I watched it today as part of this.
I saw that it's out on Netflix as like the recommended movies, I think, for Halloween. I tried to watch it with Noah and she said no, but wow.
No, thank you. So I was watching it and like, I guess like picking up on interesting things, like in the movie, the Sanderson sisters are really obsessed with like children, and the sisters were accused by children. So they kind of had it out for them. Anyway, children. So I'm watching Hocus Pocus and I'm like, this is a historical documentary.
This is now a documentary. And also weird that the movie fully leans in to one side though. It's like, no, they were witches.
Yeah, they were actually witches.
These are actually witches. It's like, wait, did we not establish that this girl was lying about everything? They're like, no. We also read the spectral evidence. Trust me, they're witches.
They only changed Rebecca's name. The witches in Hocus Pocus are named Winifred, Mary, and Sarah, and the real ones are named Rebecca, Mary, and Sarah. So, like, not only that, Rebecca's house still stands, the house that she lived in Salem, and it is like a witchcraft museum. like the museum in Hocus Pocus that they go to like light the candle, that's real. Like, you can go to Rebecca's house and light a black flame candle and rise witches from
But she was also not a witch. I don't understand this. I love how they just keep on, they're like, okay, yeah, definitely a lie, but you're all witches still. Like, just for time.
I gotta be honest.
For the rest of time.
The real story would have been a bummer for a Disney movie.
True. Yeah, I agree with you there. Where like you get to the end and it's just a child going, "I was lying all along." Blood of Christ.
Also, my favorite thing about Hocus Pocus is that the whole storyline hinges on a virgin lighting the black flame candle, and then you're always watching it with kids, and kids are always like, "What's a virgin?" And then it starts like this whole conversation that you have to have with your children. Like, all 3 of my kids have watched Hocus Pocus and asked that question. I'm like, seriously, Disney?
Here's a feature suggestion for the folks at Disney Plus. When something like that is embedded in a movie that you know is going to bring up a question, you should have like a separate feature that you can press a button and it goes into an explanation of what that thing is.
So I don't have to do
So
it.
I don't have to go through the awkwardness of this is what this means.
There's a lot of theories out there about what was happening to these girls that were making them have these like convulsions and outbursts and that kind of thing. Obviously,
The
one is
leading
that
theory
they
being
just,
puberty.
yeah, it's just like being Puritans and not getting out much. And another one is just like the theory of mass hysteria. I listened to a podcast actually called Hysteria about a similar incident that just happened like in the last 5 years. Similar case where a group of girls suddenly were acting out and had convulsions and outbursts and that kind of thing.
Recently?
And
I mean, this
very
actually,
recently. Yes.
in the last
in
5
upstate
years.
New
So
York.
you didn't listen to the podcast in the last 5 years.
No, it
this
actually
was
happened.
a case from within the last 5 years where this happened again.
Yes, in upstate New York. So similar to the area, I guess, Northeast United States. Another one, and that's just the idea that when one person kind of goes crazy, everybody can go crazy at the same time, and it's obviously like a virus that spreads. The
Crazy
third one,
is
which
contagious.
is my third one, which is my favorite explanation, is that they found mushrooms in the area, and these mushrooms, I had the name of them. Nobody cares, but they are literally like LSD. Their actual name was ergot fungus, and they exist in Salem and outside of Salem. And one of the theories is that like these girls were just like tripping out of their minds, and everybody was blaming it on witchcraft.
Wow. The U.S. Forest Service website, and it is classified as one of the plants of mind and spirit.
Yeah, these girls were definitely getting into their mind and spirit while barking at innocent civilians. And just to round out this conversation, Rebecca specifically, she is the ancestor to a handful of actually really famous people, including Mitt Romney, Zach Braff, Amy Grant, and Lucille Ball.
What?
Yes. They have their shared ancestor is Rebecca the Witch.
That is truly insane.
Who probably doesn't love being called Rebecca the Witch.
Because it's been established that she was not a witch, but forever she's just known as Rebecca the Witch. Disney was like, definitely a witch. We'll change her name, but Rebecca. You are a witch. We will.
But we're not changing the other names. We're not going to go that far. The other ones are fine. That is the Sisters of the Salem Witch Trials.
Imagine a time, I know it still exists to a certain extent now, but imagine a time where you could make that type of ludicrous claim and it just goes the distance, right? Now I feel like you see it now, right? Somebody makes an accusation and right away CCTV footage or someone's smartphone or a TikTok or something where, right? Like there's so many ways for it to be corroborated or debunked, right? And I don't know if those are the opposites, but you understand what I'm saying. One saying, yes, this thing actually happened. One saying, no, we can assure you this did not happen to a factual level. The time in history where you're just like, it's them. And let me tell you, they're witches, right? And these other girls are like, definitely witches. And they're like, all right,
that's 3.
Let's kill them. Let's just execute them. And then people are like,
choice.
But then you realize you have that power and you're like, she's a witch. Oh, he's a witch. And I know I already kind of made this joke already. But
any person that annoyed you, like literally, can you imagine accusing any person who annoys you on a daily basis, which is truly 99% of the people I come in contact with on a daily basis. But that's like, I just kind of don't like that person. So like, they're probably a witch and I probably have the power to execute them right now. That's what's wild. It wasn't just, you can see when you're reading about this topic, like you can see they started with these like kind of fringy outskirts people that they were like, no one's gonna miss this person if they're executed. And like everybody will agree, like this person, because like she's a homeless person, definitely is probably a witch because she's different from us. But then as things get more and more serious, it gets closer and closer to like their actual inner circle of people, because then it becomes just anybody who bothers them is a witch.
Like serial killers. Is this not, I've seen every serial killer documentary. It's like the first person to kill is a homeless person under a bridge. And then the next thing they're doing, they're killing the police chief's wife while the police chief is sleeping right beside her.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, like, guys, know when to stop.
Or go further out. Come on. And
don't be dumb about it.
I want to dig into spectral evidence a little bit more. So I will go down the rabbit hole of spectral evidence at some point today.
Enjoy.
And just be like, what were some of the actual examples of spectral evidence? What were some of the most outrageous ones? That's really what I'm the most curious about.
Yeah. My favorite were always the ones where like, I had a dream. That person was a witch in my dream. Therefore, they are an actual witch. And the thing is, like, the dream, like, they might have not even had a dream. Like, they could say anything they wanted. And they were like, spectral evidence, what are you going to do?
And just attaching something to witchcraft, being like, she walked down the street and the wind blew. Clearly a witch.
Yeah. I think it was just anything that they couldn't understand. Like, they didn't have a rabbit hole to go to. They couldn't type it into Reddit and be like, what?
It.
Why does my chest hurt? Please tell me, explain this to me, Reddit. Like, they didn't have anything to like validate or refute any claim that they had. It was just like, I guess witchcraft is just the easiest thing across the board to be like, let's not read too much into it. It was witches. Like, clearly. I think we can all agree.
Anything they didn't understand, it was just witchcraft.
Like, witch.
If you're new here, we finish every episode with an unhinged text message from a family member. And sometimes we are very loose with the family member term and also very loose with the text message term. Because sometimes I think they're just memories or
sometimes it's just me arguing with AI.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just you reading a conversation that you had with ChatGPT.
Well, this one's a fast one because it was when I texted you we talked about the Torkelsons in an episode, which I truly believe. Like, I feel like Torkelsons, like nobody knows what I'm talking about when I'm like, oh yeah, the Torkelsons. Remember the Torkelsons? And they're like, no, that was a fever
witchcraft.
Dream. And so someone
witchcraft.
That
is spectral evidence, and it's on its own.
Introduce it. And no, someone had posted like the opening credits and theme song to the Torkelsons after we had talked about it. And I'm like, okay, obviously our phones are listening to us, because why else would my phone be like, hey, do you need to watch the opening credits from the Torkelsons? And that's what I said. I said, oh my gosh, they're listening. You said, haha, I swear to you, a completely different Torkelsons post was on my feed. I was going to screenshot it. And I said, the Torkelson Renaissance is upon us. And you said us, me and you, nobody else.
Just me. There's some algorithm out there. It's on this like old it's run by this old dusty computer. It hasn't been fired up in years. And a few weeks ago, me and you get on an episode of this podcast and we're like, oh yeah, you remember the Torkelsons? And all of a sudden the lights go on this computer and it's like zzz, and the tape starts spinning and the dust starts like vibrating off and it's like Torkelson alert, Torkelson alert, Torkelson alert, send out Torkelson content.
The ugly kid who plays Lee just like comes out of the bed like
I'm so thirsty, and he guzzles a giant glass of water and he's like, I'm in, and just starts hitting send, and we're getting nothing but Torkelson's content.
And it's just two computers, Torkelson's content.
What the heck? Like, can I please focus my brain on real problems and things in life that matter? I just went into the most vivid description of a lone computer with tapes with nothing but Torkelson's content.
I do feel like that's one of the overarching themes of this podcast is us making up a scenario that just to like illustrate, like, okay, so imagine this, go on this journey with me. And like, who's going to play this in a movie? And imagine this scenario. And like, there's a bunch of guys and they're all sitting at a giant conference room table. It's like, why are we writing movies? This is not a movie podcast.
And all we're doing is we're trying to validate the thing that we said to try to make it grander than it actually was. Because really, let's examine the scenario that we just talked about. A Torkelson's post ended up in my social feed. We're like, let me tell you about this unhinged text from this week. I saw Torkelson's content.
Imagine just seeing it and being like, Torkelsons, and scrolling on by and not making it like the main part of my personality for the last week.
7 minutes of this extremely popular podcast. Advertisers line up just to try to get an advertising slot on this podcast. And we were like, no, we will not sell out to you, but we will dedicate 8 minutes of this podcast talking about a machine that only has Torkelson content loaded onto it.
The Torkelson content machine, yes, I'm aware.
I will get ChatGPT to illustrate what I believe this machine looks like, and it's going in the show notes.
I can't wait till my doctor looks at the readout for this and he's like, your heart rate went really high at 10:30 on Wednesday night.
And then you play him a sound clip and it's like, I'm podcasting. And with that,
I'm never going to live this down.
You can let that heart rate drop. You can tell your family that you are now completed podcasting because we're done. This is our episode today.
You can tell them to go on barking like a dog.
The whole family.
I think they're a witch. You guys are witches.
All right. And on that note, we will see you and talk to you in the next episode of the Dreyer Drive podcast.
All right. Are we saying stay crispy on every episode? Is that like our sign off for real?
Let's stop with that, actually, the question. We'll let the true Crispies answer. Would you like to be addressed in public as a Crispy? You let us know.